Hello Internet, and welcome to the Collective Arcana, a channel all about tabletop gaming. And today we're going to cover the sort of final playtest results and feedback that Paizo gave us after the Guns and Gears playtest. So after cataloging and going over and reviewing all of our results and feedback from the playtest, Paizo put their heads together and they're making the changes that will be seen in the final version of the classes. And also firearms in general. And as such, they gave us a little peek at the directions that they're leaning, the stuff that they were seeing that they want to address. Of course, we don't have the final completed versions of the classes yet. We'll have to wait till the book comes out for that. But we do have a little bit better picture of what they're going to look like. So let's go ahead and dive in. Just a quick interjection. If you haven't subscribed yet, we really would appreciate if you did so. And don't forget to hit the like button if you enjoy the video. And don't forget to leave us a comment if you disagree with something that I said or, agree with something that I said. That's always good too. So one of the primary things they addressed was reload. It was something that brought a lot of the personality to the Gunslinger, but was also something that could get a little bit tedious, especially for those Gunslinger ways, which are the subclasses. The ways that did not allow the Gunslinger an easy way to reload, specifically the two-handed dual-wielding type of guns. So, with no way to reload without putting a weapon away, reloading, putting that weapon away, drawing the other weapon, reloading if it was a gun, so it was pretty problematic. So what they're going to do is allow a special, unique reload mechanic for each of the ways as part of the way. So it's something that you don't have to investigate your class to fix the bumpy part of your class, which is always how it should be. You shouldn't need to take a feat just to make your class works. So I'm really glad that they have taken that criticism and are going to implement that fix. And I think a lot of folks, myself included, had two really big complaints about the Gunslinger. Overall, it felt really great. But one was having to buy that Band-Aid fix to correct your action economy and make it, viable. And then the other was the damage. The good news is that they heard us on the damage as well, so they're going to add quite a few more firearms. While we're not going to get something like a flat damage bonus the way many marshals do, at least it doesn't look like we're going to, what we are going to get is some firearm types that do not rely on crit fishing to get their damage. Michael Sayer specifically called out what he referred to as slower moving projectile firearms that instead of having the fatal traits, which are, the big damage on crits, they'll have larger damage dice without that trait to make up for it. And that's good. I personally, from both the Magus playtest and this playtest, really found it pretty unsatisfying to play a character class that was built around crit fishing. That's not to say that crit fishing builds can't be fun. I just don't think that it should be the only way to build a class or the default way to build a class. Just because, hitting can be hard enough, even with the legendary proficiency that the Gunslinger gets, but especially on the Magus. Whew. But it's just my personal feeling, and I'm sure some of you at least will agree, that having reliable damage output is a lot more fun than having a chance at big damage output. Especially when you're a martial character, theoretically, and your primary goal is to keep bringing down damage so that your casters can, control the battlefield, add support where needed. Having that reliability is key when you're one of the primary damage dealers in a group. Developers also said we would be getting a whole lot more different types of traits on the weapons and a whole lot of expansions to the reload, or not to the reload, but to the modular mechanic. So, we're going to see a lot more variety in our guns. Will that mean we're going to see a multi-shot revolver type gun? I don't know. I hope so. They did really say that people sort of liked the mechanics that they chose for the guns, that the single shot was really popular with the way that it fit into a fantasy world. I have my own feelings about that. I really do feel like if we're going to call something a gunslinger, it should probably look like the cowboys that the term comes from and have at least an option for a 6-shooter. It just feels right to me for a gunslinger to have a revolver. But I do acknowledge why they may hesitate and move away from that. I just do hope that we see at least some sort of a revolver of some type. If not in Guns and Gears, then soon after. And it's something that you can homebrew for sure. You don't have to have an official version of Revolver. People are already doing it. I've been doing it in my home games before Guns and Gears Black Powder weapons rules came out at all. But it would be really nice to have something that my players could just pick right out of Path Builder or whatever tool that we're using. If we're on Foundry, for example, just something that is right there, accessible and ready to go, that I don't have to go in and tweak for every type of online system. Less of a big deal in person, really, but I just really would like something. And I don't think it would be too game breaking, especially if they're fixing the reload mechanics. I don't really see what the hesitation would be, but we'll see how it goes. One other fun thing that was mentioned about firearms is that the unsteady trait, which was on the arquebus, and we would expect on most of the long rifle type of weapons, is that instead of having to get a tripod type of thing to steady it for you, just going prone would remove the unsteady trait. I like that a lot, especially with the way that it could interact with some Gunslinger feats. They have one where they can hit the deck, drop down, and return fire if somebody shoots at them. So being able to drop down, return fire with a steady weapon is sort of fun. I'm not sure how often it would actually happen. If you're using an unsteady weapon, you probably already have it braced in some way. But it is really fun if you, for example, didn't quite make the distance that you were trying to travel, whatever. There are situations where it would come up, and it's really nice that you would actually be able to drop down and be more accurate from the ground than you would have been standing, really taking advantage of that reaction. Moving on to the ways, players were actually really evenly split among the ways, apparently, which is really, really neat. It means that everybody pretty much liked them evenly. It means that we'll probably see them in the final version. We won't see any huge changes, just whatever minor tweaks they think are due, specifically that reload mechanic. And that's perfect. That means that it's less development time going to creating all new ways, and that means that any other ways they were considering will not be replacing ways, but will just be additional ways. They also mentioned that some alternative ways were suggested in the feedback, and that's really good. That means that they're at least listening to some good ideas that folks had. So if you suggested a way, there's a real chance you might see that way in the final book, which is, I'm sure, really exciting for people. I know I suggested a couple, and so if we see those, we always know that classes are going to have more than the 2 or 3 subclasses that we get to play test with. But Gunslinger could potentially be launching with more than usual, just because it looks like they're going to be reworking the ones that we saw far less, which is just great. Finally, we know that we're going to see more than twice as many guns as were in the playtest, so expect somewhere between 20 and 30 guns, which is a whole lot of firearms. There should be something there for everybody. Additionally, I mentioned the modular trait. We're going to see a lot more options there, everything from scopes to bayonets. And bayonets is interesting because we already know that we're going to see gun blades in some form. So, just having a bayonet on any type of weapon means that you won't just have to have a gun blade to be able to deal a melee attack with your gun if you're either out of ammo, hadn't had time or an opportunity to reload, or just someone is too close to you and you just want to take care of them right then before you go shooting your gun. So that's pretty much it for the Gunslinger. Overall, nothing that we didn't expect to see. I am still a little bit concerned that we don't have any flat damage boost. I'm guessing that's just because of the legendary proficiency, because Fighter is the only other martial that doesn't have some damage boost. I suppose Monk as well doesn't have any flat damage boosts, but yeah, so it'll be not unheard of to have a third one with no, when I'm saying that, I'm talking about like the swashbucklers, precision from their finishers. I'm talking about rogue sneak attack. I'm talking about the precision path for rangers, and of course barbarians rage. So we're not going to see those, it looks like, and champion, I guess, as well doesn't really have flat damage boost. But so I guess it's not as rare as maybe I initially was thinking. But still, for a class with only 8 HP per level, but good mobility, still you would think something on par with a ranger mechanic. I mean, Gunslinger, the sniper does get a situational extra damage, but that can be pretty hard to set up for them, and so it's not something that you would expect to see every round like the Precision Ranger that is just automatic once it's set up. Very easy to replicate each round to round. But I still think Gunslinger is going to be in a pretty good place, especially with the number and variety of guns that we're supposed to be seeing. It means that it means that the feats that you're going to be choosing as a gunslinger won't have to be built around correcting the issues that we saw with the reload action economy and things like that. It means that you'll be able to take more exciting, more playstyle directly related feats, therefore giving you a little more edge in other ways, even if it's not flat damage. So just that build space that's going to open up is going to do a lot for Gunslinger, as well as, again, the variety of guns. And theoretically, we could see some pretty cool builds come out of that. Now, moving on to the Inventor. So Inventor, they told us, is one of the highest overall rated playtest classes that they've had, second only to the Swashbuckler, and beating Summoner and Gunslinger, which were two of the other highest by quite a ways. They said that, that does not mean that no changes are planned. Just like the Swashbuckler, we saw quite a few differences, even though it was really well rated. But we still saw some changes going into the final version, and the same case will be the case with the Inventor. One thing we know immediately is going to be changed is the unstable trait. For those that didn't check it out, you really should. Both of these classes are completely playable in the versions that we have, the playtest versions. They do have some hiccups, things that you could certainly take care of with homebrew, but the reality is they're going to not feel too terrible alongside your other classes. The Gunslinger really does need some help with the action economy reload, but other than that, you're not going to notice any problems with these classes. If players really want to play them, they're going to enjoy them, and they're going to have unique roles within the party, so you should definitely do it. With that said, the unstable trait was something that appeared on a lot of the Inventor's, in my opinion, coolest feats. Things that basically were barely working adjustments that they had made to their gear, their innovations, that had pretty explosive and wild effects. Things like shooting out a beam of electricity, like a Tesla cannon from Fallout or something, to a super-powered punch, and to just the default that you got, which is just your innovation would just explode. And those are things that had the unstable trait. So anything with that unstable trait, if you used an unstable action, you couldn't use any other unstable actions unless you made a really high DC 20, or flat D20 DC 17 check, which meant that you were probably not going to use more than one a fight. Between fights, of course, you could tinker with your object and get that unstable trait kicked back to normal. But it doesn't change the fact that you probably want to use those abilities more than once a fight. They're really cool, very thematic. And there were a lot of them to choose from, and it just didn't make sense choosing more than one of those actions when you knew that you'd never get to use them back to back or in the same combat. So there was a higher level option to reduce that check, or even, I think, to give you a second free try at it. But they've said that that's not going to be how it works. Mark Sefter was a little bit coy, didn't want to give us the details. He had an idea that he wanted to make sure that it worked before he shared it with us, and I understand that, and also probably just wanted to save it for the actual book, and that's all fine. But we did know that this was going to be a change, because in the playtest document, it was pretty restrictive, and in the playtest polls that came out immediately as soon as everything dropped, they said, hey, this was not the final version. We had a couple versions we were kicking around. We didn't necessarily mean to include this version in the book or in the PDF. So we definitely already knew that they already knew that this wasn't quite working as intended. We just don't know exactly what the final version is going to look like. Mark had sort of kicked around an idea of you still being able to use your unsteady actions, just with repercussions. And I really like that. You're doing the check instead of seeing if it works at all. You're doing it to see, if it comes with some bad drawbacks. We also know there's going to be a sort of a gadget feat path, not necessarily a feat tree, but just a set of feats for the Inventor. Things outside of your primary innovation, just other little things that you've tinkered with. They'll probably be consumable, whether that means they'll just be one-time use and just leave them on the battlefield to pick up later, or if they actually destroy themselves after each use. Either way, they'll probably be things that you can just create at the beginning of your preparations for the day. Probably not something too resource heavy like traditional crafting, although I really do hope that we see them all in that way as traditional crafting for other classes. I would love to see the wizard who tinkers on the side, the alchemist, especially. I really hope that they treat the gadgets sort of the way that they treat alchemy for some of other classes, like for witches and investigators. The way that they have options to make those things but aren't quite as good as like a dedicated alchemist. I hope that we see those gadgets available to all, not requiring an inventor multiclass, but just another crafting type that we can see. Just because, crafting is a pretty fun side gig for your characters, and having more things, more types of crafting that your players can cover in downtime is just going to add a lot more variety to those options. These gadgets sound like a lot of cool things that I would hate to see, walled behind a single class, especially when it's not their primary gimmick, meaning that we might not see it even at our tables just because we have an inventor. As far as the innovations, which are, your primary, we saw weapons, armors, and companions, little construct companions. So we're expecting to see more. We don't know if we're going to see whole new types of innovations, or if we're just going to see only more options within those three. I sure would like a fourth. I don't really know necessarily what that could be at the moment. I hadn't really considered a whole lot regarding what a fourth innovation could be. Those are pretty wide things, the companion, the armor, and the weapon. But as far as within those three innovations, I do hope that we see an armor innovator that doesn't have to be heavy armor. Sort of the idea of like stealth armor that they could have created, or any number of other things. The flip side of that is I hope that the armor inventor or the companion inventor, either one, has some sort of a high level option to actually have almost like a mech. I think that would be really cool. Some powerful machine that they're walking around in that has, its own HP pool sort of thing. Is that balanced? I don't know, probably not. But it is something that I would like to see them sort of play with. It's something that we could see as well over in the Summoner. Some sort of a, once we have the Summoner, we could see some sort of a clockwork Summoner. It's not out of the realm of possibility. We know that there are summon spells specifically for constructs, so it wouldn't be crazy for a summoner to have an Eidolon that is a construct. In fact, we know that there are going to be construct Eidolons, and to me, that's just one step away from climbing inside of your great big robot and fighting within it. How feasible that is, whether they decide to actually do that, who's to say, but I sure would like to see it. We do know that the companions might get some better action economy, the types of more variations in how they can distribute the actions between themselves and their construct companion, the way that most other companion classes have. It was definitely sort of felt unfinished or incomplete the way that it worked for the Inventor. So hearing them address that is very good. They also suggested possibly for the construct companions who have ranged attacks that they might be able to enter into some sort of a stationary turret mode where their firepower goes up but their mobility goes down sort of concept. And that sounds like a lot of fun to me. Finally, on the subject of Overdrive, this was the sort of passive buff that not the Gunslinger, but the Inventor could give themselves. And it really sort of, kicked themselves into Overdrive. They could even share it among allies at higher levels. I'm not really sure how they just said, like attaching an object to it. And this gave them a lot of combat buffs and is, when I was talking about the Gunslinger having ways to increase their damage like other classes, or not having ways to increase their damage like other classes, Overdrive is the way for the Inventor to do that. Because, the Inventor is a frontline, theoretically, martial class. So they want that ability, which is all the more strange that the Inventor could potentially be out damaging the Gunslinger, and all the more reason I hope that the Gunslinger sees some sort of potential damage increase. I don't like the idea necessarily of I guess the proficiency would be lower on most weapons, but I just don't know that I love the idea of the Inventor being pretty standard, able to increase their damage with their gun. Is that going to be the case? I don't know. Would that mean that the Inventor's innovation would have to be their gun? Probably. In which case, I suppose that means that their gun should be that much better. I guess it's not that weird. But it is just funny to me that the crafter class, who happens to be a sort of a stealth frontliner, not even stealth, but just not expected to be a frontliner, could potentially have better damage output round to round than the Gunslinger. Overall, of course, these sound like great changes. It's nothing that we didn't really expect to see. A lot of these are things that everyone pretty much agreed on, at least in the forums and places that I was looking at. So these are things we expected to be addressed. I definitely like the way that they've addressed them. Just calling out the unsteady trait. That's going to be a big buff that you can put to your players who are already playing Gunslingers in your games. Something we don't have to wait for final rules on. I would have liked to have seen a fix for unstable that we could have seen, but I understand why they wanted to hold that back. And then the news about the new mechanics for guns, the new traits, getting rid of the fatal in favor of larger damage dice, is going to go a long way towards making the Gunslinger feel more impactful round to round versus just occasionally feeling extremely impactful. And again, those weapons aren't going to go away. So if you like crit fishing, perfect. That's still there. I'm not even saying I wouldn't use those weapons sometimes. Again, my issue is just that it shouldn't be the default de facto only way to build a class. So the fact that we're going to get those other weapons is just opening up those other options so that you don't have to do that. And if you don't have to do something, I just tend to like it a lot more when it's not forced upon you. So I really like that. I'm very pleased. I still do think that the firearms may need a little bit of help against bows. I do not want them to be stronger than bows. That's not the idea. But as of right now, it's really not easy to justify the action economy differences, even with, if you're factoring in a potential free load once per round sort of a thing, or a reload as part of something that you're going to be doing already once per round. It's still probably not going to compare over time to the mobility and fluid options that the bow has. Even if it's a free reload that you can do as part of an action, that's still an action that you have to take, or you'll have to spend an action just to reload that the ranger could be using, not necessarily even to fire a third shot, because that's often not the best idea, but to just the fact that they have versatility with that action, where you might be forced to take a special type of action just to get your reload, or again, just take the standard reload action. It's impacting the versatility of the class, and I think that is something that I hope they don't just overlook, because right now guns will never be overall quite better than bows. And I don't think they should be better than bows, but I would like to see them be on par, even if it is, and I don't love this, but even if it is just for the Gunslinger class. I'd rather see them be on par in general, since they're, if you're allowing them in your world, they should be fairly plentiful and relatively easy to use. But again, we'll see what the final build looks like. Either way, I feel confident they're going to be a lot better than they looked here, but maybe some additional edge. As for the Inventor, it's looking like not a lot's actually going to change in terms of how it works. Everything's just going to get tweaked a little bit better here and there. Just getting a glow up, basically, and that is good. I don't think that class really needed much. Once you fix that unstable trait, that's a pretty fun-looking class. It was fun in general. It's one of the most fun-looking classes that I've seen, just in terms of just the ideas and the flavor of those feats. There's a lot of fun to be had there. So I'm pretty confident that just a few minor tweaks are all that it needs. I do love that it was so popular, the second most popular playtest class, for a couple of reasons. One, because it's good work, and I like to see that. I was really impressed with it. It's always good to see when you're part of the zeitgeist, when everybody else agrees, yes, this is a really fun class. So, but the other reason that I like it, and I'm excited about it, is because I'm hoping that warm reception to the first all-new class we've seen for Pathfinder 2nd Edition means they might, not put off putting out more unique classes. This is not to say at all that I don't want to see the other classes returning in some form or another. Whether they all need to be classes or not, that's big debate with 2nd Edition. What can be an archetype? What could be a subclass? What could be whatever. Not everything necessarily needs to be its own class. I feel like in a lot of cases, some classes would be better suited to archetypes or, other variations, just because they can be tacked onto other classes and have a lot more build space than might exist within it if it was a class itself. Those are specifically for the classes that had a lot of popular archetypes in 1E. But we're getting into the weeds there. The point is that I hope that the popularity of this first new idea class will encourage them to make more new ideas, because seeing what they do within this system as they've gotten more comfortable with it over the first year and a half that it's been out, and seeing what a whole completely new idea, when they're not just trying to replicate something from first edition, the Inventor's pretty cool, and I just hope we see more fun stuff like that soon rather than later. Finally, in this little feedback blog post, which we will link to down in the description of the video, in this little blog, they did give us a preview of a specific magic gun that I won't give too many spoilers on. You should go check it out and get the full stats. But it's a sentient pistol that is haunted, and so the spirits within it have a lot of unfinished business. And it also, just the nature of it, can be fired underwater, which is something that most black powder weapons, I guess, theoretically cannot do. So, which I don't necessarily remember seeing that trait, but I suppose that could have been something I missed. But either way, it specifically calls out that it can be fired underwater. So if if it's up to the GM, the GM can't say, oh no, there's no way black powder fires. This one at least does. So that's a lot of fun, and a good preview of the types of weird magic items I hope that we see in terms of the specific guns. And keep in mind, we're also going to see probably a lot more just clockwork mechanical type of items in general, and that combined with the Bazaar book that's coming out later this year means that we could see quite a few gaps filled in terms of your item selection as a character. It really does feel like there's just not quite enough items yet, and between those two books, I imagine that's going to change significantly. So that's the Guns and Gears playtest. Hopefully, you guys agree with the direction the designers are going. If not, let them know. Probably a little too late for any major changes, but for one, I think this is looking pretty good. I have a whole lot of confidence in them, just seeing what they've done so far. Seeing how they've taken criticism of other playtest classes. I don't have much doubt that we're going to see some really nice classes come out this year in Secrets of Magic and Guns and Gears. I'm just really excited to see them. I want to get my hands on them as soon as possible. I'm sure a lot of you are in that same boat. So that's it. Let us know down in the comments how you feel about the playtest and the feedback, and we'll see you next time. Welcome to the Collective.